Hello, this is the analysis of Introduction, which is the first poem in Songs of Innocence by William Blake. So, first things first, introduction to what? So, first of all, it is the introduction to the Book of Songs themselves, but it's also the introduction to what inspired Blake, and why Blake has written the songs. So it sets the tone for the whole poem. I'm just going to pop these notes down here. It sets the tone as for the whole book of poems as a sequence for Blake to show him as divinely. He's a divinely inspired visionary. He really believes in God. Okay. Key themes that you will see in the poem. We'll see lots of pastoral imagery, which is very common for the Romantics. It's a very simple poem, as are all the poems in Songs of Innocence. They come across as very simple looking, but they tend to have quite a bit of depth to them once you start exploring the messages. Blake is the narrator here, so Blake is the I in the poem. And you'll notice that they're called Songs of Innocence, not poems, because Blake thought that worship to God should be allowed and public. This poem also is interesting because it predicts the upcoming poem, The Lamb. It talks about it in advance. Okay, so we're going to have a look now overall at the structure of the poem. So, first thing is it's written in quatrains, which is a 4-line stanza. It has an alternate rhyme scheme, which I'll write on the side here. Alternate rhyme scheme just means every second line rhymes. So wild and child, glee and me, lamb again, cheer here, pipe again, cheer here. Right side, read, pen in general. Anywhere there's a break in the rhyme scheme, so pen and songs, pipe again, lamb again, those usually highlight more important words in the poem. So you'll notice that we talked about the introduction of the poem Lamb. That comes up as a discordant rhyme. It doesn't suit the whole rhyming pattern. Walkie talkie. So it is written in present tense, using lots of infinite verbs for the child, for Blake himself, but so Blake is remembering parts of this story happening, his inspiration for the poems, the book of poems. So his voice in this poem is in past tense, whereas the child's voice is in present tense mostly, and is very immediate. So the use of present tense infinite verbs shows it's an ongoing inspiration. It's why he's continued to write. Okay, stanza 1 is in Blake's voice. So this I here is Blake. And it's in past tense, showing that he's going to recount a story. So, piping down the valleys wild, piping songs of pleasant glee. On a cloud I saw a child, and laughing. He laughing said to me. The next one is dialogue between Blake and the child. So, the child says, pipe a song about a lamb. And then he tells you his actions. So I pipe with merry cheer. Then the child gives more instructions. Pipe that song again. And Blake recounts the tale again. So I piped, he wept to hear. Then this stanza here, stanza 3, is also the child and Blake's actions. The child says, drop thy pipe, thy happy pipe, sing thy songs of happy cheer. And then Blake's actions are, so I sung the same again while he wept with joy to hear. Then more instructions from the child. Piper, sit thee down and write in a book that all may read. And then actions from Blake is the last stanza and the last 2 lines. So he vanished from my sight, and I plucked a hollow reed. And I made a rural pen, and I stained the water clear, and I wrote my happy songs that every child may joy to hear. So we don't have Blake's voice as direct speech, but we do have the child's voice as direct speech. So I'll just highlight the child. And we know the I is Blake. All right. The interesting thing about the child is that they're very much cast in an imperative tone. There is lots of commanding phrases. Which shows the child's authority over Blake. Okay. Right, I'm going to go stanza by stanza now. And we're going to just highlight any key word level or phrase level devices that come up and what that might mean or suggest, just in case it's not obvious. Okay, so this is stanza 1 at the top here. So the first phrase we're going to look at is valleys wild. So this is a lovely natural pastoral image. It's linked to, again, remember pastoral images linked as a common trait in romantic poetry. And it shows uncorrupted nature, which was a very important image in this time because it was a period of heavy industrialization. So this is the time of industrialization across the world, where people moving from farms and rural lifestyles into the cities to work in factories that were springing up. All right, so that's the first. So our setting here is a very natural pastoral one, which again links into this idea that God himself is therefore natural and a part of us. Okay. Then we have piping songs of pleasant glee. Notice he's not singing or speaking words at this point, he's just making music. And we've got repetition here. This repetition will carry on all the way through. Repetition of the phrase pipe, piping, piper. All of this could link to an overlying idea that these poems are designed to represent an innocent or childlike view of the world and God and worship. And so this makes Blake, who is then leading this interpretation through his poems or songs, like the Pied Piper of Hamelin. So if you know the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, you'll know that, so here he's called the Piper. You'll know that the Pied Piper of Hamelin is hired by a city to get rid of the city's rats. And he has a magic pipe, so he plays some beautiful songs on his pipe to charm the rats off out the city and over a cliff. Once the rats are gone, the city folk refuse to pay the piper, and he steals their children in the same way. He charms them with a song on his pipe. So I'm just going to write here, Pied Piper with a question mark. The idea that these songs would charm children and have a childlike perspective is enhanced by that sort of illusion. Illusion means when you refer to another story. So it might be an allusion to the Pied Piper, especially as piper, pipe and piping is repeated so frequently throughout the poem. All right, the next bit we've got here is on a cloud I saw a child. So the cloud might symbolize heaven, and the child, there are a number of interpretations for this. It could be the idea this is a childlike perspective, a childlike voice. There are lots of interpretations that point out that this could be Jesus. But I think the later reference to the lamb probably negates that. I think this is probably more like a cherubim, which is a childlike angel that appears a lot in religious literature. And these childlike angels, of course, any angel is the voice of God. So any angel that appears to you will speak with the voice of God, the messengers of God. In this case, it's a childlike version, a cherubim. That's my interpretation. But as I said, there are many interpretations that suggest that the cloud and a child must be Jesus in heaven. So that's also another valid interpretation. We can't ask Blake, and there aren't a lot of illustrations to go with this poem that would show us what he means. Okay. Let's see. We've got a couple of really nice verbs, adverbs, and adjectives that suggest that this is a happy, it's got a very happy and joyful tone. So we've got glee and laughing. So these two, glee means happy, laughing suggests someone is happy. So overall here we've got a joyful tone established at the beginning. Okay. And of course, the first instruction from the child, he laughing said to me, and then we've got the child's voice at the start of the second stanza. So you notice the child's voice starts each stanza, except for the first and last one. So we've got a nice pattern there. All right, stanza 2. Pipe a song about a lamb. And again, we've got that imperative tone. Sounds more like a command rather than a suggestion, especially as it's in present tense. Do it now, pipe a song. So this bit here, pipe a song, this is present tense, so infinite verb that suggests the action is happening now or will continue to happen. And obviously if he's asking him to pipe a song and then write a book later, shows that this is an ongoing process. And the lamb here definitely represents Jesus. You can tell from the non-standard capitalization. Lamb would normally have a lowercase l, but because this is a significant lamb, it's the name of something, it's got a capital L, which means that the child is asking Blake here to make some music about Jesus. So Blake is happy to oblige. He gives you his actions. We've got a lovely coordinating conjunction here that shows his response to the instruction. So the coordinating conjunction, so I piped with merry cheer. You'll notice that cheer has non-standard spelling. This isn't because the poems were written in 1790. It's because Blake wanted his poem to look and sound like it rhymes. All right, so I piped with merry cheer. Piper piped that song again. So I piped. He wept to hear. So this phrase also causes a lot of contention. So it doesn't say, like in this stanza, that he's weeping with joy. It just says that he is weeping. So is this weeping with joy? Is this, which is the tone established at the beginning, or is this weeping with sadness? Because while this is a nice sounding song, it's still a song. It's not words of praise. Okay. So we also have, with the repetitions of the P's, wept, all those P's, those P alliterations show both Blake and the child's passion in relating music and stories about Jesus or God. Okay, So your P alliteration is referred to as plosive alliteration. Now you're doing A level, you'll need to make sure that you're looking at the type of alliteration that's being used. P sounds are passionate, they push air forward, and that means they're called plosive. Okay. So the other thing about this weeping for joy bit, it's a bit of a jarring image that contrasts with the rest of the poem, as the rest of the poem is a really happy tone. So why is he crying? Are they happy tears? It's a question we will continue to ask ourselves, I'm afraid. It's interesting to discuss if you want to take an alternative view. Or if you want to suggest that Songs of Innocence, most of the Songs of Innocence poems also have a hint of reality, real life in them. So they're not complete fiction, or they're not complete blind positivity. Okay, stanza 3. Drop. Again, we have another imperative using an infinite verb. Now, do it now. We've also got suddenly these archaisms. An archaism is an old word we don't use today. You'll probably recognise thy as coming from Shakespeare in your studies, but thy just means you or your. So drop thy pipe, thy happy pipe. And again, we've got the repetition of happy words here. So while this is a lovely looking semantic field of joy about the music and the songs, but this time the child is instructing Blake to change his music into words. And this is where the idea of Blake's poetry in the Songs of Innocence and Songs of Innocence sounding quite hymnal, so something you would sing in church to worship God, comes out. Okay, because all of the happiness and the joy is related more to the singing. The repetition of happy shows that. Okay. Let me see. We've got pipe and piper repeated again to emphasize that Blake's responsible for leading. And the idea of a happy pipe, I might just get a different colour. It's getting a bit crowded. Right, this idea of a happy pipe here. Pipes can't be happy, so it's being personified as though it's got some kind of personality, which shows that it's a vessel of God, I guess. Okay. And again, another coordinated conjunction which shows him following the instructions. Notice, though, that Blake is switching. While the child is giving imperatives in infinite verbs, Blake always speaks in finite verbs, past tense. Okay, to show that it's already being done. Whatever's being talked about now, it's already happened. It has a place in space and time. Right, so I sung the same again while he wept with joy to hear. So we have a repetition here. Okay, but this one has been shifted, not just weeping, but weeping with joy. So it shows a change from stanza 2 to stanza 1. Stanza 2 to stanza 3. So the child isn't weeping to hear now they're weeping with joy. So we have an improvement of mood once Blake shifts from just playing music that sounds positive to using words that celebrate God. Okay, we've got another I rhyme for cheer, again, because he wants his words to look. Remember, he's a visual artist, so the idea that hear and cheer look the same and sound the same would really appeal to him. Okay. Also, Blake uses another finite verb to talk about the cherubim, the child's actions. He wept, past tense. Okie dokie. So, this also suggests, obviously, that the child prefers words or singing to just the music. Okay. Moving on to stanza 4. Piper sit thee down and write in a book that all may read. Now, this is again, repetition of him as being a leader, like the Pied Piper of Hamelin. But again, if you know anything about Greek and Roman mythology, you'll know that Pan, who's the god of nature and procreation and all things natural, he used to play panpipes. So panpipes are the ones that are reeds that you blow across the top of. So shifting from one reed to another to make a pen also keeps it in the natural form. So everything that's being used to create the poems is staying natural and linked therefore to God. Right, Piper, sit thee down and write in a book that all may read. The other thing about this quote is that it's an allusion to, remember an allusion was a reference to another text. So it's allusion to a quote of angel's instructions to David in the book of Psalms, where he's told to sit down and write a book that all may read about God. So this is paraphrasing David's instructions from the angel in the book of Psalms in the Bible, which shows, I guess it emphasizes the idea that Blake is a messenger of God. And so is the angel that is speaking to him, the child on the cloud. And that his works are important. Okay. So, we've got Piper, sit thee down and write, book that all may read. And then, of course, because the child is an angel, he vanished. These two, where the apostrophe replaces a syllable, these two are called elision. And that's when you shorten words with an apostrophe to make them fit. All of the lines in this poem are 7 syllables. So to make vanished and plucked fit into these 2 lines, he had to take a syllable out. So it's vanished and plucked, but without the, normally it would have been pronounced vanished and plucked. So makes it 7 syllables still. So he vanished from my sight, but definitely not from his mind, because he then goes on. You notice it shifts here from so as our coordinating conjunction to and. So all of these actions here with this and are therefore equally important and shows they're happening together. So you get the idea that this is an ongoing process. So he keeps having to pluck a reed, make a pen, use the water to write songs, and then do this over and over again. Obviously, when you were writing with pens and ink in those days, you had to keep refilling your ink and you had to keep replacing the reed in your pen because they'd get stained and clogged. So it's happening over and over again. You've got this sense of it's a repeated action with all the ands. And it takes time, it's over time. However, he is still talking in past tense: vanished, plucked, made, stained, wrote. So he is recounting what's happened to him before. All these ands together are known as parallelism. It's where you start all your clauses with the same word. It shows they're equally important, they all happen at the same time, and the idea of refilling. He writes so much he has to refill the pen and the ink over and over again. Okay, obviously we've got some more nature imagery here. So a rural pen means he's just picked a hollow reed, which is this one here. So we've got our natural imagery or pastoral imagery again. Okay, and we've also got another contentious line: stained the water clear. That's suggesting that his writing is obviously colouring the water, but it could also be referring to the fact that Blake coloured all his artwork using watercolour. So it could be more of a suggestion that when he writes and illustrates his poetry, he will be using stained water to do that. Okay, and of course he has his happy songs, and they are a joy to hear. So we've heard happy songs, we've heard joy to hear repeated again. So these are all repeated phrases. okay, to emphasize the key message. But now there's songs being repeated, so it's important, the words. It's the words that Blake is writing that are the joy to hear. They're obviously in past tense, okay, and may is a passive modal verb, passive modal verb, which suggests that you can choose to interpret the poems and Blake's work in this way or not. If it was going to be an active modal verb, it would say something like must or shall. So those are more commanding. Passive modal verbs are not commanding, they are advice-based. They are not commands. Okay, Blake thinks that how you should interpret the word of God for yourself, and therefore that's what he is doing. Okay, and of course we've got the repeat back to the child here. Every child may joy to hear Blake's poems out loud, his songs and words of worship to God. Then this suggests that God will be pleased, because obviously the angel is God's messenger. The angels will be pleased. And if you have a child, this would represent man on earth, as man is made in God's image. So basically everyone, when it says child, it doesn't necessarily mean just children, it means everyone should enjoy Blake's poems. Okay. I think that's probably enough to fry your brain for now. We'll come back next time with the echoing green.